The video clip you're about to see is the interviews of 3 different people, all leading in the church today. Each person is in a different age group, ministry, and shares their original story. This is what they had to say. Associates Pastor Skip Rad, age 62, serves University Church in Waxahachie, Texas. Associate Pastor Skip, thank you so much for meeting here with me in this interview. I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Firstly, how long have you been serving University Church?
Well, there's really, I've been attending here for 7 years. I don't really have a set time where I've been serving, but I've been attending and doing what I'm doing, been doing for 7 years. I guess that helps me answer the question a little bit.
What's the type of work that you do for University Church?
It's a little bit of everything and anything that they need. I have done data entry for them. I've helped them get the computer system up. I've preached for them. I coordinate one of the ministries that they have, which is the Care Ministry Network, which is kind of our pastoral care organization that assigns people to different people in our church, and they have team leaders, and they kind of check up on everybody. I've directed the choir for special Christmas and Easter productions. I just do whatever they need me to do. I'm just kind of the gopher is what I like to call
The
it.
servant. Now, some months ago, you experienced an accident. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Sure. On April 6th, I know the date and the time really well. April 6th, about 5:10, I was having an end-of-school party for my high school choir and band. At the time, I was teaching at Life High School here in Waxahachie. We're having an end-of-school party, and I was trying to connect with the students, and so I said to them, at 5 o'clock, come for the show, because I've had a trampoline since I was 15. So even though at the time I was 62 years old, and they think I'm an old man, I was going to try to connect with them. And I've done thousands of backflips and front flips, and I have all sorts of tricks that I do on the trampoline. And I was very late on getting onto the trampoline because we were processing 106 students, and the trampoline park was very picky, and I was very frustrated. So we didn't get everybody in until 5 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, I had several students come up and say, "Where's the show? Where's the show?" I said, "Just give me a few minutes." So I finally got on the trampoline and was bouncing. It's okay, where's your front flip? So I did my front flip, and it didn't make it over on my feet. I went, that's not good. So I started bouncing, trying to get more height, because I'm used to a trampoline. I'm used to an Olympic size, an Olympic trampoline that just lets you do flips and do all sorts of things. And I wasn't getting the height that I needed. So I started jumping a little bit more, and I said, "Where's your backflip?" So I tried the backflip and didn't get up to the height that I needed. So I came down on my head and broke my neck in 2 places.
Wow.
So kind of changed my life a little bit. I'm sure the students, I saw at least 7 cameras going, you know, how they have it on their phone, because they're wanting to videotape Mr. Red doing his backflip. And so I'm sure it's all over Snapchat and who knows who all, but I saw that accident while I was laying on the trampoline. Because once I hit the trampoline, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed from my chest down.
Wow.
And so while I was laying there, they said, "Do you want to see your video?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So that's changed my life.
Wow. Could you tell me a little bit about the recovery process?
Sure. Well, I was in ICU at Methodist Hospital in Dallas for 2 weeks, 19 days actually. And after that, they sent me down to Houston to a rehab place called Tier Rehab, and I was there for almost 2 months and had therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, full therapy, functional group stuff for 2 months. And what's happened is I had to get the bones healed, but then the spinal cord has been injured, and the spinal system encases your nervous system, and so I've damaged my nerve, and so that's why I'm having to learn how to walk. I'm having to learn how to do everything again. I will. It's described as a like a wreck on a highway, and there's lots of congestion, and so I will send signals from my brain to the rest of my body, and my body's not getting it. And so this is kind of weird. I'm going, okay, feet move, and they just don't do anything. And eventually they do this. So my recovery is, they say it takes up to 2 years to find out what kind of return you'll have from a spinal cord injury. And so I'm already way past what the doctors expected. Yes, I feel like I'm a miracle in the making. I'm not there yet, completely healed yet, but my doctor, the surgeon, from the trampoline park, I was air flighted to Dallas, and within 4 hours, I was in surgery to reset my neck. And my surgeon told me as I was going into surgery, you're going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of your life. That's a possibility. And when I finally got out of surgery, and they kept saying the same thing, after my 3-month checkup, when I went in and I was walking with a walker, or no, I was in a wheelchair at that time still. And I showed them how I could walk. They said, our best case scenario for you was that you could have a hand function with one arm and hand and be able to feed yourself. And you're way past what we ever expected. And well, it's because of all the prayers. Because I have people all around the world that have prayed.
Wow.
And it's a miracle working God that has blessed me beyond my imagination. And so I'm a very blessed man. Very blessed man.
Can you tell me the process of your recovery to then still serving at university?
That's a very unique thing because I obviously have been incapacitated for several months. It happened in April, and when I came home, it was a very slow process for me, and I just basically couldn't do much at the church at all. And in September, our pastor resigned, and that was like, okay, what's going on here? And so I knew that my position before was the support, and I wanted to make sure that the pastor's farewell dinner was nice. It's a class act. And I wasn't really ready mentally, emotionally, or physically. But I knew I needed to do it. So I volunteered. And I started finding out my limitations. But it pushed me to get back going. And so because of that event, I knew I couldn't do it. So I had probably 15 ladies helping me. I had people setting up tables and chairs and cooking. There was a delegation. It wasn't just me, but I was the main person. And I knew what I wanted. And some of the ladies said, no, let's not use the china. No, let's not use real cups. No, let's not use real silverware. No, this is a farewell dinner for our pastor who's been here 7 years. It needs to be a class act. And so I probably startled a few people because I got back into my delegation mode, my leadership role. And so that was kind of the catapult that put me back into where I am. And I was doing it because I wanted to prove my loyalty and my love towards the pastor. I feel like we need to honor whoever is the pastor. And it's since then I haven't slowed down much. I'm going, okay, because I learned my limits. I actually got exhausted one day working on this dinner. And I went out to our lobby here at the church and just laid down for a couple hours because I overdid it. And so it's been kind of good for me with my leadership role. And just so you know, I'm a volunteer. I'm not been paid all these years
Yeah.
because the church has been in a very unique setting, and um, it's been good for me since September because it's pushed me to have a purpose and to get out of bed and to move on and see if I can be a stabilizing factor and help bring a unity and a peace through this transition that we have here. So I don't know if that explains a little bit about where I am, what the church is, and where I fit in all of that. Because I don't really know what I'm doing.
Do you think that having to do something every day has pushed your recovery further along, or?
Well, I have mixed emotions. Sometimes I feel like it has. Sometimes I feel like it's put me back because some of the responsibilities have not allowed me to do my finger exercises like I really need because I don't have the function of my hands and my arms like I used to. Um, I I actually went back into the wheelchair so I could wheel around the building faster, and I realized that was not good. So it set me back, and but then I've also pushed myself to walk the building, and I'm walking further and faster than what I was 3 months ago. So it's kind of yeah, because I really need to focus on my therapy and doing my exercises. And I realize that it's not just in my sessions with my therapists, the physical therapists and the occupational therapists. It's got to be me deciding what I've got to do. So they've given me homework. And they ask me if I do my homework, I go, can you ask me tomorrow? And I'll do it that night. So it's been kind of fun.
So what do you think continues your push to your loyalty in the church and in serving?
Well, it's just how much I'm overwhelmed with God and with my relationship with Jesus. And this whole experience, it's like I've always wanted to please Him, and I've always given my whole life for Him, and I don't want to ever change. So it's just He's got a plan. I should be dead, and I'm not, and I'm getting better, and so there's something else for me to do. I don't know what I'm willing to do, even in this condition. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. No, I know that if the Lord were
Just love Him.
just right in the room to say, servant Him on my feet. Thank you so much for the Lord that you do.
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I still make mistakes, even because I'm human. But I just want to please Him. I just want to serve Him.
We should all have that attitude.
Yeah. I thought I always had that before, and now I feel like I'm being tested. But I still love it. I still want to give my whole life.
What advice would you give to somebody with similar or a physical disability, that desires to serve the Lord? What advice would you give them?
I would say, don't focus on yourself. I would say, look around you. You don't have it as bad as you really think. Every day down in rehab in Houston and here, there were men my age, younger. There were women, older, younger, that were worse off than me. There was a guy that was 38 years old, paralyzed from the neck down, couldn't feed himself, was on a respirator, couldn't talk, and I could just see him look at me like, I wish I could do as much as you're doing. And every single day I was reminded how blessed I was. So even though I'm very frustrated, gonna feel so limited. I would say to everybody else, look, people worse than you. Get over it. Move on. Don't focus on yourself. Now, that's not easy to do, but that's the hardest thing. And I would say, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. But get over it. Move on. Be thankful for what you have. And don't give up. Don't give up. And just let the presence of the Lord minister to you. And if you don't know the Lord, get to know him. Because he's there for you. You know, because I don't see how people survive without knowing God. I don't understand. I know he's real. And he's the only solution to everything. And it's like, why don't you know him? And so that's what I would say. First off would be, you know Jesus in the way that I know him. And if you don't, why not? Otherwise, forget it. You're not going to make it. I mean, because if you look at Christopher Reeves, who portrayed Superman, his injury was about 2 or 3 inches above bottom, and that's one reason why he was paralyzed from the neck down. He basically hated God and then his wife, and it comes across, and I feel like he died way too early because of his animosity towards our Creator, and so you're missing out, and that's one thing I would say to someone if they're in that same condition. Why don't you know God? Why don't you understand? It's not that he was being mean to you to make you in this predicament, because he still loves you. And so why don't you just worship him back and love him and move on? You know, so I probably would come across a little harsh because I know what the reality is, and I know what people need to do, and it's beyond what the world thinks is correct. You know, and so first off, I would say, okay, you don't have it as bad as it, and there's always somebody that has it worse. I mean, there's a guy that doesn't have any arms or legs, and he's still out there as a motivational guy. So come on, we got it made.
Wow, that's true. How have you seen God's glory through your accident?
Just through a lot of other people. My kids, my wife are wonderful. Each of my kids have a gift and a talent, and they've ministered so much to it. So, just seeing my family, my wife, I never have to see me in this condition. This is not me. So, just seeing the glory of the Lord through my family, and then I taught at Bible school for over 20 years. I don't know if you know that or not. And my students that have reached out to me and saying you're praying for me, just the way the church comes together. And when I say the church, I mean the body of Christ around the world, whether they're Assemblies of God or Baptist or Methodist or Lutheran, is I know people around the world literally, and just the way they've responded in this, and the scriptures and the prayers and the cards, and it's just, I know it's coming through people, but that's the glory of God. So it's just overwhelming. It's very overwhelming. People that I don't even know. I mean, the nurse that was on the helicopter ride with me has reached out and kept in contact. And she even said, "Can I have my church pray for you?" And she said, "Wiley Baptist Church in Dallas area." I said, "Sure." And she's every time she was on duty and the helicopter would land at the hospital, she would come and find me. And so just new friendships, old friendships, just the church in general, that they've just shown the love of God. And just the miracles, the doctors and nurses and therapists, God's in everything, and we just need to see it that way.
So, who would you say has been the best support system after this that has helped you to continue to lead?
Probably my wife. She sees me when I'm down. We have talk. She's my wife.
Do you believe that it would have been possible for you to continue leading without the support of family?
Oh yeah, I would have made it. I would have. When it all happened, my son, I had one son and two daughters. My son, after the doctor said to me, "You're going to be quadriplegic, you're surviving, set your bones and go from there." As soon as he said it, my son whispered in my ear and said, "Just think about God. Think about the scriptures. Stand upon the promises of God. Don't go on being a quadriplegic. Bring it back. Think about God and His healing touch and His promises." And so that's the kind of kids I had, and this kind of family I had. My dad, who was 86, flew out the day after, and he was inviting me. Yeah, I just have a wonderful support. And, I could have made it on this own. I couldn't. I'm usually very independent, stubborn, go-getter myself.
Yeah.
And I was really naive. I didn't realize how bad I was. And I also realized how enough I've made it for everyone. Everyone that's been there. I can't believe I'm being so emotional for you. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. The grade is worth it.
I'm being a big crybaby.
No. Sir, your story is so inspirational, and this video will be seen by so many that can be inspired, who could be possibly in your same situation, maybe even from birth, and have thought, what can I, give to the church, or how could I even lead if I have this, and you starting off, without this problem, and learning both sides of, what you were able to do and what you struggle to do now, but still getting the job done, and finding other means. I'm sure it will inspire many to, I have no excuse, I gotta get out there and serve, Yeah. So, what advice could you give to that mindset of a church who does not, feel that somebody can lead with that physical disability?
Well, I think as a church, unless someone has gone through this situation, we're kind of a little callous towards handicapped people. I hate to be harsh, but even within our own church here, I'm looking at how hard it is for me to open a door, even just to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the door open for the first couple of months I was here. And our outside doors were miserable.
Oh yeah, I barely can open it.
I know. It's just like we're not ready for anybody becoming handicapped. And I think one of the challenges we as Christians and Pentecostals and Assemblies of God, well, we believe in healing. Mm-hmm. So we don't need the handicap ramp. We don't need, I'm going, no, wait a minute. So I think that's my advice now is we need to be sensitive. I was always sensitive before, but it's like now that I've gone through it, I have a whole different perspective. And I always relate to it as I would always help people with funerals and have sympathy. But when my mom passed away, it was a whole different experience. And it's the same thing that's happening to me now. I will always have been sensitive to people that are blind or deaf or handicapped in a wheelchair. But now it's a whole different thing. I couldn't relate. Now I do. When you're in a wheelchair and you can't move, it's a whole different thing. And I think as Christians, as churches, we need to be sensitive of it. And that sounds so trite, but because you can't be as sensitive as if you're going through it. And so my thing is I want people to accept me the way I am, but also believe with me, I'm not going to stay like this. And I think that's kind of hard for someone in a leadership. It's like you've got to let people accept you, but yet don't. I guess one of my big fears is don't want people to be pitying me because I am handicapped or impaired or whatever this is. I don't know what they call it anymore. I don't want pity, but I want to be accepted and I want to move on. My brain is still the same, it's just my body's not. So it's weird.
Yeah. Some people just do that with age.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. See, that was always a humorous thing. For the therapist, they're going, what are we getting? Because on my description was 60-year-old back with trampoline, broke neck. So, like, what kind of a person is this? I'm adventurous. So, yeah.
What are your hopes a year from now as an associate, leader? What are you hoping for the church? What are you hoping for yourself? What are you hoping for the goal, the vision, all of it?
Well, since our church is in a transition,
Yes.
without a pastor, permanent pastor, we have a pastor that's doing a phenomenal job. I think a year from now, I would love for this church to be 5 times as big as it is. The unity, the peace, the goal, the vision, the mission that God has planned. It's an awesome position to be in because there's a stirring, there's something happening. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be exciting. It's going to be something, something that people are going to go, oh wow, we didn't expect all that. So I don't know if that answers your question for a year from now. I want to be back to normal, but if I'm not, I just want to do what God wants. If that makes sense.
How do you continue the attitude of glorifying the Lord despite if I have a good day or a bad day? How have you decided to choose that, to be thankful either way?
Well, it's sometimes I have to really make myself because it is a choice, and I think everyone needs to understand that is a choice. Choose you this day, and it says that over and over. I'm just going to be really blunt and honest. When I hit my bottom, I've hit bottom a lot. I pull out a Spotify playlist and I put together, and I think a lot of people would be surprised. The first one is by Pastor Cox. Yes, and it's put a praise on it.
Put a praise on it, Pastor Cox. I gotta look that up.
It says there's a miracle in this room.
Wow.
Praise on it. There's a healing in this. Wow. The breakthrough in this room. The praise on it. I had a miracle. I've been down in Dallas, or up in Dallas. That obviously was spirit-filled. She whispered that into my ear.
Wow.
almost everything. And I told my kids, I gotta hear this song, I gotta hear it. And that when I'm hitting my lowest, I realize I have to just praise the Lord. I have to put it all in perspective of the cross. I have to, and then there's another one out there by Matthew West called Mended. I don't know if you've heard that song, but that's my theme song, because I'm being mended. And then there's another one, and I can't remember who it's by, but it's called Storyteller. And in there it talks about scars have stories to tell. And I have a gnarly scar in my back from my operation. And it has a story. And then Hezekiah Walker, Every Praise. I don't know if you heard that one.
Every praise is on my
Yes. And then there's another one. I can't remember that one's by. It's another praise song. So, and then Isaiah, praise the Lord. It's the guy that was at Lake Liberty in Houston.
It's okay.
But it's praise the Lord. I listen to those songs and Jesus, I fly in the spirit. But praise does that. It's Paul and Silas at midnight in their darkest hour, they would pray and then they prayed. And that's what I do. That's when and I have to make a choice. If I feel hit bottom, I'll see that day. That's how we are.
How can the church help you to continue serving?
Just pray and just accept me. And just see that I have a calling. Don't know what it is. I'm still searching to find out exactly my niche, but just pray.
Skip, you've answered beyond my questions.
I'm good at rambling. Sorry.
Thank you so much for being with me.
Sure.
It has been such a blessing.
Outpost Coordinator Commander Ellison Fuentes, age 54, leads the Royal Ranger Ministry at New Beginnings Cathedral in Passaic, New Jersey. Commander Ellison Fuentes, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I know it's a little inconvenient over the screen, but I couldn't travel to Jersey for this appointment.
Okay.
But basically, can you describe to me some of the responsibilities that you hold as a commander of the Royal Ranger Ministry?
Well, as the commander of the Royal Ranger Ministry in our church, I make sure that I oversee the leaders that are there. Make sure that activities are planned for the boys, especially in the summertime when we go camping. As well as making sure that the boys see their advancements as they grow, and making relationships with their parents as well. I think that's very important, making sure that the parents know who's in charge of the boys and making sure that the boys are okay.
What qualities do you see as crucial as a commander in the Royal Ranger Ministry and other churches as well?
Well, first of all, you got to have a passion. If you don't have a passion for the boys, don't even get into it. I see that in a lot of churches where the commanders are there year to year, and sometimes they change commanders every other year.
Oh, wow.
So I think being able to say, this is what God has called me, this is where I'm going, and have, like I said, having a passion for the boys and for the ministry makes it essential to have a good operating War Ranger ministry.
Now, in a nutshell, what would you describe the purpose of the Royal Ranger ministry?
Well, I always go with the old, like the cliche or impact, which says, we're there to reach, teach, and keep boys for Christ. That's the main purpose. There is no other purpose. Now we give it a step further, and it's to empower these boys, to evangelize these boys, and take them to a different level.
Amen. I like that answer. Now, where do you see the Royal Ranger ministry in our church 5 years from now?
Well, probably we won't be there. I don't know what will be there. Probably be top. I think getting someone else prepared and being able to grow elsewhere. But the War Rangers, we've been there since 1973.
Wow.
And we're not going anywhere. And I've been there as a boy and as a leader for a total of 44 years.
Amen.
And I tell you, I've gone through the ups and downs, but I haven't given up. And the War Rangers in outpost 79 will always hold strong, because sometimes I'm walking outside, I'm walking in the store, and all of a sudden, some guy would say, "Yeah, I know Ellison. Yeah, he used to be my commander." And I said, "I never saw this guy before in my life." So you have to, I say to myself, there is a purpose. There is a purpose why, So 5 years from now, like I said, I'll probably be in somewhere else. That's what I say now. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you've probably been saying this for a few years now, right?
Yeah.
40 years later, you're still in.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say some of the biggest challenge of the Royal Ranger ministry as a leader is today?
Today, I can tell you in the past, is seeing one of your boys, how should I say this, going to a funeral.
Yeah.
Because he was in the middle of a drug bust.
Wow.
And being killed.
Wow.
That was hard for me. And then another boy where he stabbed someone to death and ended up in jail.
Wow. Wow.
So those are the things to me that were negative. But then I look at everything else where one of our Royal Rangers presently is the judge of Middlesex County.
Wow. Oh, man.
So we have a lot of college graduates, and, that's what makes it, exciting, that they take education to another level.
Yeah.
And that's what's important.
Yeah. So why do you do this, Commander Ellison?
Why do I do this? It's in my blood. This year they gave me a legacy award.
Wow.
And I said to myself, wow, they really think, I don't even think myself as a person, But when I go to a church, they know exactly, and I do this, why? Because of the passion, because of the way that, I was brought up, the way that I grew up with the War Ranger program, the War Ranger ministry, I call it, being able to get your Gold Medal of Achievement, the highest award given to the War Rangers and then the War Ranger ministry, and given it by, I was actually awarded that medal, the Gold Medal of Achievement, by the founder of the War Rangers, Johnny Barnes.
Wow.
So I take that and I say to myself, you know what? There is a purpose why things just kept happening the way they did. And I thank God for it, and I thank God for being there.
Wow. Well, Thank you so much for meeting with me, Commander
You're
Ellison
welcome.
Fuentes. You've answered all my questions. Is there anything that you would like to add, possibly as advice to maybe even a church who's starting the ministry for the first time?
I would say get your leaders trained and don't give up.
Thank you so much, Commander Ellison. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Megan Michelle Rios, age 26, leads as a teacher at University Church in Waxahachie, Texas. Megan Michelle Rios, thank you so much for meeting here with me today.
Oh, not a problem.
I have a few questions for you
Okay.
in the ministry that you're involved in. How long have you been serving in children's ministry?
I've been serving since 2008.
Wow.
Yes, 2008.
Now, describe to me some of the work that you've done in children's ministry.
In children's ministry, I've led worship. That's pretty much the main focus of what I've done. I have been a teacher. Right now, I am doing currently the rainbows, so that's a fun class, especially with 3-year-olds. Yes.
Okay. Now, what challenges over the many years of experience that you've had with this ministry have you faced as a leader?
We do run with the problem about like kids trying to pay attention because kids have a very short attention span. We do also have the problem of not having enough volunteers. That's two of the main struggles we get.
How do you feel that you can move past this problem?
For me, what I've done with kids not wanting to like get focused and like go back into the lesson, I'll count from 5 backwards, and then they refocus, and then they get back into their respective orders of where they're going to be at. For the volunteer aspect, we just have to like persuade, try to like get parents involved and be like, hey, come volunteer. It's kids ministry. We need help.
Yes.
Recruit.
Now, what keeps you going in children's ministry?
I love kids. That's my thing. I love kids. Especially because I'm going to be an educator. I feel like that's the perfect aspect to get my training in, because though you don't have specific, like, you have to do this lesson and you have to do this lesson, you're still getting the process of learning how to put a lesson together.
Why do you see it as important in the church?
I see it as important because if we don't have a kids ministry and we don't have like a place where kids feel welcomed and whatnot, then like they're not going to get a lesson because they'll be with the parents and what they're learning is not appropriate for their age level. So you have to have something appropriate for their age level so they can learn about God.
What advice would you give to a church that is starting a children's ministry?
For starting a children's ministry, you have to have 2 groups. You have to have a preschool group and you have to have an elementary group because those 2 ages are totally different and their learning styles are different. You can have a nursery if you have the need for it, but most of the time you're going to have preschool and you're going to have an elementary age.
Very good. Some parents do not see the importance of getting involved in children's ministry. What advice or statement would you say to somebody who holds that view of not seeing it as important to get involved?
I think it's important for them to get involved because 1, it shows them what we are teaching the kids. 2, it gives them an idea of like, hey, my kids in this age group, they're learning this. What can I add on at home for it? And it just builds like a community.
Very good. Some churches do not support children's ministry financially. What would you say to a church who has that problem of lack of finances? Or do you not see it as important for the church to financially support?
I feel it's important that the church should financially like support children's ministry because 1, we do need all the curriculum. 2, most of the time you have to like purchase like worship songs in order to use them. So in that aspect, we just need the money, the resources, so that way we can have an effective kids ministry.
So a church who is not being financially supported by their church, what advice could you give them?
I say for the children's ministry workers, just fundraise as much as you can, even though the church may not support it. But the more you fundraise, the more too, you're also showing like, hey, we do have a children's ministry, therefore you can bring your child to church and they can learn a lesson as well.
If finances were not a problem in the church, what would you see as fit for the most of that money to be used for?
I would say for most of the money to be used for a kids camp. I know I've done kids camp the last 3, 4 years that we've had it at our church, and it's been very effective. I usually have the kinder and first graders at this camp, and we have them for 3 days. And pretty much all of the kids that I've ever had have accepted Jesus into their heart through this camp.
What is actually done at this camp?
At this camp, our children's pastor, he is in charge of the whole lesson. So he comes up with the lesson, he gets the story, he involves the kids, there's puppets, there's worship, we have interactive groups, and then during free time they can either go up to Prayer Mountain and then take pictures and then leave a prayer request by the cross that's up there. They can go swimming. It's just fun activities that they can do that say like, hey, it's not just about learning about Jesus. You can make friends. You can, learn about the Holy Spirit. You can learn different things. And some of them have even been called into ministry.
Wow. Do you see it as important in the training of volunteers / teachers in children's ministry?
I do think it's important because one, like the church that I do help at back home, we have what's called risk awareness. So it basically shows like you have to have a kid, like if you're having one kid and they're in trouble or whatever, you have that 1-to-1 ratio. That's wrong. You need 2-to-1 so that way in case like a parent comes and says like, hey, you abused my kid, like you've got somebody else to back you up and say we didn't physically touch your kid. We're there. Plus, it also does give parents peace of mind that like there are more than just one volunteer in there, and that they're learning and they're growing through the help of all the volunteers.
Now, would you hold more of a view that experience is the best teacher, or would you more agree that a person is gifted in that children's ministry or another area of the church?
For me, I would say that with kids ministry, experience is good, but at the same time, training is also good in that aspect because I know when I started, I had no clue what I was doing. I was completely blind to kids ministry. But as I, worked and then we had trainings once a month, I got to grow. And so now I can be a more effective and better worship leader for the kids.
How long? Oh, this is actually I guess that was my last question. Thank you so much, Megan, for meeting with me. You have been a great help. Now, would there be anything else that you would like to add to inform people more about the ministry?
Just get involved.
Get involved.
Yep. Everybody can get involved somewhere.
All right.